Welcome to How to Live on 24 Hours a Day, a timeless guide by Arnold Bennett. First published in the early 20th century, this short but powerful book explores one of life's greatest challenges: how to make the most of the time we are given. Bennett reminds us that every person, regardless of wealth or status, receives the same daily gift, 24 hours. The difference lies in how we choose to spend them. In this audiobook, you will hear Bennett's practical advice on recognizing the miracle of time, overcoming the feeling of wasted days, cultivating habits of reflection, concentration, and serious reading, finding joy and meaning in ordinary life, avoiding the dangers of pride, impatience, and neglect. His words are direct, witty, and deeply motivating. Though written over a century ago, the lessons remain strikingly relevant today. This is not merely a manual for productivity, but a call to live more fully, to enrich the soul, and to transform routine hours into a life of purpose. Prepare to listen, reflect, and perhaps change the way you view your day. Preface. This preface, though placed at the beginning as a preface, should be read at the end of the book. I have received a large amount of correspondence concerning this small work, and many reviews of it, some of them nearly as long as the book itself, have been printed. But scarcely any of the comment has been adverse. Some people have objected to a frivolity of tone, but as the tone is not, in my opinion, at all frivolous, this objection did not impress me. Had no weightier reproach been put forward, I might almost have been persuaded that the volume was flawless. A more serious stricture has, however, been offered, not in the press, but by sundry obviously sincere correspondents, and I must deal with it. A reference to page 43 will show that I anticipated and feared this disapprobation. The sentence against which protests have been made is as follows. In the majority of instances, the typical man does not precisely feel a passion for his business. At best, he does not dislike it. He begins his business functions with some reluctance, as late as he can, and he ends them with joy as early as he can. And his engines, while he is engaged in his business, are seldom at their full horsepower. I am assured in accents of unmistakable sincerity that there are many businessmen, not merely those in high positions or with fine prospects, but modest subordinates with no hope of ever being much better off, who do enjoy their business functions, who do not shirk them, who do not arrive at the office as late as possible and depart as early as possible, who, in a word, put the whole of their force into their day's work and are genuinely fatigued at the end thereof. Both in London and in the provinces, it has been my lot to spend long years in subordinate situations of business, and the fact did not escape me that a certain proportion of my peers showed what amounted to an honest passion for their duties, and that while engaged in those duties, they were really living to the fullest extent of which they were capable. But I remain convinced that these fortunate and happy individuals, happier perhaps than they guessed, did not and do not constitute a majority or anything like a majority. I remain convinced that the majority of decent, average, conscientious men of business, men with aspirations and ideals, do not as a rule go home of a night genuinely tired. I remain convinced that they put not as much but as little of themselves as they conscientiously can into the earning of a livelihood, and that their vocation bores rather than interests them. Nevertheless, I admit that the minority is of sufficient importance to merit attention, and that I ought not to have ignored it so completely as I did do. The whole difficulty of the hard-working minority was put in a single colloquial sentence by one of my correspondents. He wrote, "I am just as keen as anyone on doing something to exceed my program, but allow me to tell you that when I get home at 6:30 in the evening, I am not anything like so fresh as you seem to imagine." Now I must point out that the case of the minority, who throw themselves with passion and gusto into their daily business task, is infinitely less deplorable than the case of the majority, who go half-heartedly and feebly through their official day. The former are less in need of advice how to live. At any rate, during their official day of, say, 8 hours, they are really alive. Their engines are giving the full indicated horsepower. The other 8 working hours of their day may be badly organized or even frittered away, but it is less disastrous to waste 8 hours a day than 16 hours a day. It is better to have lived a bit than never to have lived at all. The real tragedy is the tragedy of the man who is braced to effort neither in the office nor out of it, and to this man this book is primarily addressed. But, says the other and more fortunate man, although my ordinary program is bigger than his, I want to exceed my program too. I'm living a bit. I want to live more. But I really cannot do another day's work on the top of my official day. The fact is, I, the author, ought to have foreseen that I should appeal most strongly to those who already had an interest in existence. It is always the man who has tasted life who demands more of it, and it is always the man who never gets out of bed who is the most difficult to rouse. Well, you of the minority, let us assume that the intensity of your daily money getting will not allow you to carry out quite all the suggestions in the following pages. Some of the suggestions may yet stand. I admit that you may not be able to use the time spent on the journey home at night, but the suggestion for the journey to the office in the morning is as practicable for you as for anybody. And that weekly interval of 40 hours from Saturday to Monday is yours just as much as the other man's, though a slight accumulation of fatigue may prevent you from employing the whole of your horsepower upon it. There remains, then, the important portion of the 3 or more evenings a week. You tell me flatly that you are too tired to do anything outside your program at night. In reply to which I tell you flatly that if your ordinary day's work is thus exhausting, then the balance of your life is wrong and must be adjusted. A man's powers ought not to be monopolized by his ordinary day's work. What then is to be done? The obvious thing to do is to circumvent your ardor for your ordinary day's work by a ruse. Employ your engines in something beyond the program before, and not after, you employ them on the program itself. Briefly, get up earlier in the morning. You say you cannot. You say it is impossible for you to go earlier to bed at night. To do so would upset the entire household. I do not think it is quite impossible to go to bed earlier at night. I think that if you persist in rising earlier and the consequence is insufficiency of sleep, you will soon find a way of going to bed earlier. But my impression is that the consequences of rising earlier will not be an insufficiency of sleep. My impression, growing stronger every year, is that sleep is partly a matter of habit and of slackness. I am convinced that most people sleep as long as they do because they are at a loss for any other diversion. How much sleep do you think is daily obtained by the powerful, healthy man who daily rattles up your street in charge of Carter Patterson's van? I have consulted a doctor on this point. He is a doctor who for 24 years has had a large general practice in a large flourishing suburb of London, inhabited by exactly such people as you and me. He is a curt man, and his answer was curt. Most people sleep themselves stupid. He went on to give his opinion that 9 men out of 10 would have better health and more fun out of life if they spent less time in bed. Other doctors have confirmed this judgment, which, of course, does not apply to growing youths. Rise an hour and a half, or even 2 hours earlier, and if you must, retire earlier when you can. In the matter of exceeding programs, you will accomplish as much in 1 morning hour as in 2 evening hours. But, you say, I could not begin without some food and servants. Surely, my dear sir, in an age when an excellent spirit lamp, including a saucepan, can be bought for less than a shilling, you are not going to allow your highest welfare to depend upon the precarious immediate cooperation of a fellow creature. Instruct the fellow creature, whoever she may be, at night. Tell her to put a tray in a suitable position overnight. On that tray, 2 biscuits, a cup and saucer, a box of matches, and a spirit lamp. On the lamp, the saucepan. On the saucepan, the lid, but turned the wrong way up. On the reversed lid, the small teapot containing a minute quantity of tea leaves. You will then have to strike a match, that is all. In 3 minutes the water boils, and you pour into the teapot, which is already warm. In 3 more minutes the tea is infused. You can begin your day while drinking it. These details may seem trivial to the foolish, but to the thoughtful they will not seem trivial. The proper, wise balancing of one's whole life may depend upon the feasibility of a cup of tea at an unusual hour. Chapter 1. The Daily Miracle. Yes, he is one of those men that do not know how to manage. Good situation, regular income, Quite enough for luxuries as well as needs. Not really extravagant, and yet the fellow is always in difficulties. Somehow he gets nothing out of his money. Excellent flat, half empty. Always looks as if he had had the brokers in. New suit, old hat. Magnificent necktie, baggy trousers. Asks you to dinner. Cut glass, bad mutton, or Turkish coffee, cracked cup. He cannot understand it. Explanation simply is that he fritters his income away. Wish I had the half of it. I would show him. So we have most of us criticized at one time or another in our superior way. We are nearly all chancellors of the exchequer. It is the pride of the moment. Newspapers are full of articles explaining how to live on such and such a sum. And these articles provoke a correspondence whose violence proves the interest they excite. Recently, in a daily organ, a battle raged round the question whether a woman can exist nicely in the country on £85 a year. I have seen an essay, How to Live on 8 shillings a week. But I have never seen an essay, How to Live on 24 hours a day. It has been said that time is money. That proverb understates the case. Time is a great deal more than money. If you have time, you can obtain money, usually. But though you have the wealth of a cloakroom attendant at the Carlton Hotel, you cannot buy yourself a minute more time than I have, or the cat by the fire has. Philosophers have explained space. They have not explained time. It is the inexplicable raw material of everything. With it, all is possible. Without it, nothing. The supply of time is truly a daily miracle, an affair genuinely astonishing when one examines it. You wake up in the morning, and lo, your purse is magically filled with 24 hours of the unmanufactured tissue of the universe of your life. It is yours. It is the most precious of possessions, a highly singular commodity, showered upon you in a manner as singular as the commodity itself. For remark, no one can take it from you. It is unstealable, and no one receives either more or less than you receive. Talk about an ideal democracy. In the realm of time, there is no aristocracy of wealth, and no aristocracy of intellect. Genius is never rewarded by even an extra hour a day, and there is no punishment. Waste your infinitely precious commodity as much as you will, and the supply will never be withheld from you. No mysterious power will say, "This man is a fool, if not a knave. He does not deserve time. He shall be cut off at the meter." It is more certain than consols, and payment of income is not affected by Sundays. Moreover, you cannot draw on the future. Impossible to get into debt. You can only waste the passing moment. You cannot waste tomorrow. It is kept for you. You cannot waste the next hour. It is kept for you. I said the affair was a miracle. Is it not? You have to live on this 24 hours of daily time. Out of it, you have to spend health, pleasure, money, content, respect, and the evolution of your immortal soul. Its right use, its most effective use, is a matter of the highest urgency and of the most thrilling actuality. All depends on that. Your happiness, the elusive prize that you are all clutching for, my friends, depends on that. Strange that the newspapers, so enterprising and up-to-date as they are not full of how to live on a given income of time, instead of how to live on a given income of money. Money is far commoner than time. When one reflects, one perceives that money is just about the commonest thing there is. It encumbers the earth in gross heaps. If one cannot contrive to live on a certain income of money, one earns a little more, or steals it, or advertises for it. One does not necessarily muddle one's life, because one cannot quite manage on £1,000 a year. One braces the muscles and makes it guineas and balances the budget. But if one cannot arrange that an income of 24 hours a day shall exactly cover all proper items of expenditure, one does muddle one's life definitely. The supply of time, though gloriously regular, is cruelly restricted. Which of us lives on 24 hours a day? And when I say lives, I do not mean exists, nor muddles through. Which of us is free from that uneasy feeling that the great spending departments of his daily life are not managed as they ought to be? Which of us is quite sure that his fine suit is not surmounted by a shameful hat, or that in attending to the crockery he has forgotten the quality of the food? Which of us is not saying to himself, Which of us has not been saying to himself all his life, I shall alter that when I have a little more time? We never shall have any more time. We have, and we have always had, all the time there is. It is the realization of this profound and neglected truth, which, by the way, I have not discovered, that has led me to the minute practical examination of daily time expenditure. Chapter 2. The desire to exceed one's program. But someone may remark, with the English disregard of everything except the point, what is he driving at with his 24 hours a day? I have no difficulty in living on 24 hours a day. I do all that I want to do and still find time to go in for newspaper competitions. Surely it is a simple affair, knowing that one has only 24 hours a day, to content oneself with 24 hours a day. To you, my dear sir, I present my excuses and apologies. You are precisely the man that I have been wishing to meet for about 40 years. Will you kindly send me your name and address, and state your charge for telling me how you do it? Instead of me talking to you, you ought to be talking to me. Please come forward. That you exist, I am convinced, and that I have not yet encountered you is my loss. Meanwhile, until you appear, I will continue to chat with my companions in distress, that innumerable band of souls who are haunted, more or less painfully, by the feeling that the years slip by and slip by and slip by, and that they have not yet been able to get their lives into proper working order. If we analyze that feeling, we shall perceive it to be primarily one of uneasiness, of expectation, of looking forward, of aspiration. It is a source of constant discomfort, for it behaves like a skeleton at the feast of all our enjoyments. We go to the theater and laugh, but between the acts it raises a skinny finger at us. We rush violently for the last train, and while we are cooling a long age on the platform waiting, if we further analyze our vague, uneasy aspiration, we shall, I think, see that it springs from a fixed idea that we ought to do something in addition to those things which we are loyally and morally obliged to do. We are obliged by various codes written and unwritten to maintain ourselves and our families, if any, in health and comfort, to pay our debts, to save, to increase our prosperity by increasing our efficiency. A task sufficiently difficult, a task which very few of us achieve, a task often beyond our skill. Yet, if we succeed in it, as we sometimes do, we are not satisfied. The skeleton is still with us. And even when we realize that the task is beyond our skill, that our powers cannot cope with it, we feel that we should be less discontented if we gave to our powers, already overtaxed, something still further to do. And such is, indeed, the fact. The wish to accomplish something outside their formal program is common to all men who in the course of evolution have risen past a certain level. Until an effort is made to satisfy that wish, the sense of uneasy waiting for something to start which has not started will remain to disturb the peace of the soul. That wish has been called by many names. It is one form of the universal desire for knowledge, and it is so strong that men whose whole lives have been given the most important preliminary to the task of arranging one's life so that one may live fully and comfortably within one's daily budget of 24 hours is the calm realization of the extreme difficulty of the task, of the sacrifices and the endless effort which it demands. I cannot too strongly insist on this. If you imagine that you will be able to achieve your ideal by ingeniously planning out a timetable with a pen on a piece of paper, you had better give up hope at once. If you are not prepared for discouragements and disillusions, if you will not be content with a small result for a big effort, then do not begin. Lie down again and resume the uneasy doze which you call your existence. It is very sad, is it not? Very depressing and somber? And yet I think it is rather fine, too, this necessity for the tense bracing of the will before anything worth doing can be done. I rather like it myself. I feel it to be the chief thing that differentiates me from the cat by the fire. Well, you say, assume that I am braced for the battle. Assume that I have carefully weighed and comprehended your ponderous remarks. How do I begin? Dear sir, you simply begin. There is no magic method of beginning. If a man standing on the edge of a swimming bath and wanting to jump into the cold water should ask you, how do I begin to jump? you would merely reply, just jump. Take hold of your nerves and jump. As I have previously said, the chief beauty about the constant supply of time is that you cannot waste it in advance. The next year, the next day, the next hour are lying ready for you, as perfect, as unspoiled, as if you had never wasted or misapplied a single moment in all your career, which fact is very gratifying and reassuring. You can turn over a new leaf every hour if you choose. Therefore, no object is served in waiting till next week or even until tomorrow. You may fancy that the water will be warmer next week. It will not. It will be colder. But before you begin, let me murmur a few words of warning in your private ear. Let me principally warn you against your own ardor. Ardor in well-doing is a misleading and a treacherous thing. It cries out loudly for employment. You cannot satisfy it at first. It wants more and more. It is eager to move mountains and divert the course of rivers. It is not content till it perspires. And then, too often, when it feels the perspiration on its brow, it wearies all of a sudden and dies, without even putting itself to the trouble of saying, I have had enough of this. Beware of undertaking too much at the start. Be content with quite a little. Allow for accidents. Allow for human nature, especially your own. A failure or so, in itself, would not matter if it did not incur a loss of self-esteem and of self-confidence. But just as nothing succeeds like success, so nothing fails like failure. Most people who are ruined by attempting too much. Therefore, in setting out on the immense enterprise of living fully and comfortably within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day, let us avoid at any cost the risk of an early failure. I will not agree that, in this business at any rate, a glorious failure is better than a petty success. I am all for the petty success. A glorious failure leads to nothing. A petty success may lead to a success that is not petty. So let us begin to examine the budget of the day's time. You say your day is already full to overflowing. How? You actually spend in earning your livelihood. How much? 7 hours on the average? And an actual sleep? 7? I will add 2 hours and be generous. And I will defy you to account to me on the spur of the moment for the other 8 hours. Chapter 4. The Cause of the Trouble. In order to come to grips at once with the question of time expenditure in all its actuality, I must choose an individual case for examination. I can only deal with one case, and that case cannot be the average case, because there is no such case as the average case, just as there is no such man as the average man. Every man and every man's case is special. But if I take the case of a Londoner who works in an office, whose office hours are from 10 to 6, and who spends 50 minutes morning and night in traveling between his house door and his office door, I shall have got as near to the average as facts permit. There are men who have to work longer for a living, but there are others who do not have to work so long. Fortunately, the financial side of existence does not interest us here. For our present purpose, the clerk at £1 a week is exactly as well off as the millionaire in Carlton House Terrace. Now, the great and profound mistake which my typical man makes in regard to his day is a mistake of general attitude, a mistake which vitiates and weakens 2/3 of his energies and interests. In the majority of instances, he does not precisely feel a passion for his business. At best, he does not dislike it. He begins his business functions with reluctance, as late as he can, and he ends them with joy, as early as he can. And his engines, while he is engaged in his business, are seldom at their full horsepower. I know that I shall be accused by angry readers of traducing the city worker, but I am pretty thoroughly acquainted with the city, and I stick to what I say. Yet in spite of all this, he persists in looking upon those hours from 10 to 6 as the day, to which the 10 hours preceding them and the 6 hours following them are nothing but a prologue and epilogue. Such an attitude, unconscious though it be, of course kills his interest in the odd 16 hours, with the result that, even if he does not waste them, he does not count them. He regards them simply as margin. This general attitude is utterly illogical and unhealthy, since it formally gives the central prominence to a patch of time and a bunch of activities which the man's one idea is to get through and have done with. If a man makes 2/3 of his existence subservient to 1/3, for which admittedly he has no absolutely feverish zest, how can he hope to live fully and completely? He cannot. If my typical man wishes to live fully and completely, he must, in his mind, arrange a day within a day. In this inner day, a Chinese box in a larger Chinese box must begin at 6 in the evening and end at 10 in the morning. It is a day of 16 hours, and during all these 16 hours, he has nothing whatever to do but cultivate his body and his soul and his fellow men. During those 16 hours, he is free. He is not a wage earner. He is not preoccupied with monetary cares. He is just as good as a man with a private income. This must be his attitude, and his attitude is all important. His success in life, much more important than the amount of estate upon which his executors will have to pay estate duty, depends on it. What? You say that full energy given to those 16 hours will lessen the value of the business 8? Not so. On the contrary, it will assuredly increase the value of the business 8. One of the chief things which my typical man has to learn is that the mental faculties are capable of a continuous hard activity. They do not tire like an arm or a leg. All they want is change, not rest except in sleep. I shall now examine the typical man's current method of employing the 16 hours that are entirely his, beginning with his uprising. I will merely indicate things which he does and which I think he ought not to do, postponing my suggestions for planting the times which I shall have cleared, as a settler clears spaces in a forest. In justice to him, I must say that he wastes very little time before he leaves the house in the morning at 9:10. In too many houses he gets up at 9, breakfast between 9:07 and 9:30, and then bolts. But immediately he bangs the front door, his mental faculties, which are tireless, become idle. He walks to the station in a condition of mental coma. Arrived there, he usually has to wait for the train. On hundreds of suburban stations, every morning you see men calmly strolling up and down platforms, while railway companies unblushingly rob them of time, which is more than money. Hundreds of thousands of hours are thus lost every day simply because my typical man thinks so little of time that it has never occurred to him to take quite easy precautions against the risk of its loss. He has a solid coin of time to spend every day, call a sovereign. He must get change for it, and in getting change he is content to lose heavily. Supposing that in selling him a ticket the company said, "We will change you a sovereign, but we shall charge you 3 halfpence for doing so," what would my typical man exclaim? Yet that is precisely what he does tolerate, because he has never taught himself to appreciate the value of moments. Chapter 5. Tennis and the Immortal Soul. Some time ago, in a Sunday newspaper, a woman wrote an article in which she described how she had trained herself to begin the day with a game of tennis before breakfast. She explained that she rose at 6, played until 8, and then went about her ordinary duties. The result was that she felt she had lived a whole day before most people had begun theirs. She had, in fact, doubled her life. Now, I do not suggest that you should take to tennis before breakfast. I am merely pointing out that you can, if you choose, begin your day with something that is not your business, something that belongs to your soul. You could begin with exercise, or with reading, or with meditation, or with music. The point is that you should begin with something that gives you the sense of having lived, something that is not merely a preparation for earning money. The great mistake is to suppose that life is divided into 2 parts, the business part and the leisure part, and that the business part is the serious part, while the leisure part is only an accessory. The truth is that the leisure part is just as serious as the business part, perhaps more so. For it is in leisure that you cultivate yourself, that you develop your soul, that you live as a human being and not merely as a machine for earning money. If you spend your leisure in idleness or in trivial amusements, you are wasting your life. If you spend it in cultivating your mind, in enjoying art, in reading, in thinking, in conversing with intelligent people, you are living your life. And the more you live in this way, the more you will find that your business life is enriched, that you bring to it a freshness and a vitality that you would not otherwise have. It is a mistake to suppose that the soul can be cultivated only in great leisure, in long holidays, in retirement. The soul can be cultivated in odd moments, in half hours, in minutes. The soul does not need much time. It needs only sincerity and attention. A few minutes of real thought, of real reading, of real conversation are worth more than hours of mechanical amusement. Therefore, I say, begin your day with something for your soul. Do not wait until the evening, when you are tired and your mind is dulled. Begin with the morning, when you are fresh and your mind is clear. Begin with something that will give you the sense of having lived, something that will make you feel that you are not merely a machine, but a human being with a soul. And if you say that you have no time, I reply that you have all the time there is. You have 24 hours a day, just as much as Shakespeare had, just as much as Michelangelo had, just as much as Beethoven had. The difference is not in the amount of time, but in the use of it. If you use your time for your soul, you will find that you have lived. If you do not, you will find that you have wasted your life. Chapter 6. Remember human nature. When one sets out to live fully within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day, one must remember human nature. Human nature is not a machine that can be wound up and set to work without pause. It is a living thing with moods, with weaknesses, with sudden impulses, with a tendency to fatigue. If you forget this, you will fail. You must not expect too much of yourself. You must not imagine that you can suddenly change your habits, that you can suddenly become a different man. You must not suppose that you can suddenly begin to live a life of intense intellectual activity after years of idleness or of mere mechanical routine. You must remember that you are human, and that human nature resents sudden changes, resents sudden demands, resents sudden discipline. Therefore, you must begin slowly. You must begin with small efforts, with little tasks, with short periods of concentration. You must allow for failure, for relapse, for discouragement. You must not be disheartened if you do not succeed at once. You must not give up because you find it hard. You must remember that it is always hard at first, that it is always difficult to change habits, that it is always painful to discipline oneself. But you must also remember that human nature is capable of great things, that it is capable of endurance, of perseverance, of achievement. You must remember that if you persist, if you are patient, if you are determined, you will succeed. You must remember that the human mind is capable of continuous activity, that it does not tire like the body, that it only needs change, variety, interest. Therefore, in arranging your day, you must allow for human nature. You must not plan too much. You must not demand too much. You must not expect perfection. You must be content with small successes, with little victories, with gradual progress. You must be content to live a little more fully today than you did yesterday, and a little more fully tomorrow than you did today. If you remember human nature, if you are patient with yourself, if you are kind to yourself, if you are firm but not harsh, you will succeed. You will find that you can live fully within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. You will find that you can cultivate your mind, your soul, your body, without exhausting yourself, without discouraging yourself, without failing. You will find that you can live, not merely exist, not merely muddle through, but live. Chapter 7. Controlling the Mind. When you have begun to arrange your day so that you may live fully within the narrow limits of 24 hours, you will soon discover that the chief difficulty lies not in the arrangement of time, but in the control of the mind. The mind is a restless thing. It wanders. It refuses to be held. It slips away from the task you have set it. It insists on thinking of something else. It insists on dreaming, on imagining, on recalling, on anticipating. It will not stay where you put it. Therefore, the first and greatest discipline is the discipline of the mind. You must learn to control your thoughts. You must learn to fix your attention. You must learn to concentrate. Without concentration, nothing can be done. Without concentration, time is wasted. Without concentration, life is wasted. How is concentration to be acquired? By practice, by effort, by persistence. You must begin with small tasks. You must begin by fixing your attention for a few minutes at a time. You must begin by compelling your mind to stay with the book you are reading, with the thought you are thinking, with the work you are doing. You must begin by refusing to let it wander. You must begin by bringing it back again and again when it slips away. At first it will be hard. At first you will fail. At first you will be discouraged. But if you persist, if you are patient, if you are determined, you will succeed. You will find that your mind becomes obedient. You will find that your attention becomes steady. You will find that you can concentrate for longer and longer periods. You will find that you can hold your thoughts where you want them to be. And when you have acquired concentration, you will have acquired the key to success. You will have acquired the power to use your time. You will have acquired the power to live. For concentration is the secret of all achievement. It is the secret of all knowledge. It is the secret of all art. It is the secret of all life. Therefore, I say, control your mind. Discipline your thoughts. Compel your attention. Concentrate. Without concentration, you cannot live. With concentration, you can live fully, richly, completely, within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. Chapter 8. The Reflective Mood. When you have begun to discipline your mind, when you have acquired some power of concentration, you'll find that there comes to you, from time to time, a mood of reflection. It is a mood in which you are inclined to think quietly, to meditate, to consider, to review. It is a mood in which you're not eager for action, not eager for amusement, not eager for conversation, but eager for thought. This reflective mood is one of the most precious possessions of the human mind. It is in this mood that you see things clearly. It is in this mood that you understand yourself. It is in this mood that you perceive the meaning of life. It is in this mood that you grow. Therefore, when the reflective mood comes to you, cherish it. Do not resist it. Do not try to escape from it. Do not say, I must be doing something. Do not say, I must be amusing myself. Do not say, I must be working. Say, I will think. I will reflect. I will meditate. I will consider. I will review. And when you do this, you will find that your life is enriched. You'll find that you have new ideas. You will find that you have new strength. You will find that you have new courage. You will find that you have new hope. You will find that you have new joy. The reflective mood is not idle. It is not wasted. It is not useless. It is the most fruitful of moods. It is the mood in which the mind does its best work. It is the mood in which the soul grows. It is the mood in which life becomes meaningful. Therefore, I say, cherish the reflective mood. Make room for it in your day. Make room for it in your life. Do not be afraid of it. Do not despise it. Do not neglect it. Welcome it. Honor it. Use it. For it is the mood in which you live most fully, most richly, most completely, within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. Chapter 9. Interest in the Arts. When you have begun to discipline your mind, when you have acquired some power of concentration, and when you have cherished the reflective mood, you will naturally be drawn towards the arts. For the arts are the highest expression of human thought, of human feeling, of human imagination. They're the means by which the soul communicates with the world, by which the soul enriches itself, by which the soul lives. Interest in the arts is not a luxury. It is not an amusement. It is not an accessory. It is a necessity. It is a part of life. Without it, life is poor, narrow, incomplete. With it, life is rich, wide, full. Without it, the soul starves. With it, the soul grows. Therefore, I say cultivate an interest in the arts. Cultivate an interest in music, in painting, in sculpture, in literature, in drama. Cultivate an interest in all that expresses beauty, in all that expresses truth, in all that expresses the soul of man. Do not say that you have no time. Do not say that you have no talent. Do not say that you have no taste. You have all the time there is. You have the talent of appreciation. You have the taste that can be cultivated. Begin with little things. Begin with a picture, with a song, with a poem, with a play. Begin with what you can understand, with what you can enjoy. Do not be afraid of ignorance. Do not be afraid of simplicity. Do not be afraid of mistakes. Begin and you will grow. Begin and you will learn. Begin and you will live. Interest in the arts will enrich your life. It will give you joy. It will give you strength. It will give you courage. It will give you hope. It will give you peace. It will give you the sense of living fully, richly, completely, within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. Chapter 10. Nothing in life is humdrum. When you have begun to discipline your mind, when you have acquired some power of concentration, when you have cherished the reflective mood, and when you have cultivated an interest in the arts, you will discover a great truth. Nothing in life is humdrum. Nothing is dull. Nothing is trivial. Nothing is unimportant. Everything is interesting if you will only look at it, if you will only think about it, if you will only give it your attention. The humdrum is in yourself, not in the thing. The dullness is in your mind, not in the world. The triviality is in your attitude, not in the fact. If you say that life is humdrum, you are confessing that your mind is idle, that your imagination is asleep, that your soul is dead. If you say that life is interesting, you are confessing that your mind is active, that your imagination is awake, that your soul is alive. Therefore, I say look at life with fresh eyes. Look at life with curiosity. Look at life with imagination. Look at life with sympathy. Look at life with love. And you will find that nothing is humdrum. You will find that everything is full of meaning, full of beauty, full of interest. You will find that the commonest things are wonderful, that the simplest things are profound, that the smallest things are great. The man who can see interest in everything, who can find meaning in everything, who can discover beauty in everything, is the man who lives. He is the man who is rich, who is happy, who is free. He is the man who has conquered life. He is the man who has made life his own. Therefore, I say, cultivate the habit of seeing interest in everything. Cultivate the habit of finding meaning in everything. Cultivate the habit of discovering beauty in everything. Cultivate the habit of living fully, richly, completely, within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. Chapter 11. Serious reading. When you have begun to discipline your mind, when you have acquired some power of concentration, when you have cherished the reflective mood, when you have cultivated an interest in the arts, and when you have discovered that nothing in life is humdrum, you will naturally be drawn towards serious reading. For serious reading is one of the most fruitful uses of time. It is one of the most powerful means of cultivating the mind, of enriching the soul, of living fully. By serious reading, I do not mean reading for amusement, reading for distraction, reading for killing time. I mean reading that demands thought, that demands attention, that demands concentration. I mean reading that gives you ideas, that gives you knowledge, that gives you wisdom. I mean reading that makes you think, that makes you reflect, that makes you grow. Serious reading is not easy. It is not light. It is not trivial. It is hard. It is demanding. It is difficult, but it is worth the effort. It is worth the time. It is worth the discipline. For it gives you more than amusement, more than distraction, more than entertainment. It gives you life. Therefore, I say, make room in your day for serious reading. Make room in your life for serious reading. Do not say that you have no time. Do not say that you are too busy. Do not say that you are too tired. You have all the time there is. You have 24 hours a day. You can find an hour, or half an hour, or even a few minutes for serious reading. Begin with a book. Begin with a chapter. Begin with a page. Begin with a paragraph. Begin with what you can manage. Begin with what you can understand. Begin with what you can enjoy. And persist. And continue. And grow. Serious reading will enrich your mind. It will enlarge your vision. It will deepen your understanding. It will strengthen your character. It will ennoble your soul. It will give you the sense of living fully, richly, completely, within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. Chapter 12. Dangers to avoid. When you have begun to discipline your mind, when you have acquired some power of concentration, when you have cherished the reflective mood, when you have cultivated an interest in the arts, when you have discovered that nothing in life is humdrum, and when you have made room for serious reading, you must beware of certain dangers. For there are dangers that threaten the man who tries to live fully within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day. The first danger is the danger of pride. When you have succeeded in living a little more fully, when you have succeeded in disciplining your mind, when you have succeeded in cultivating your soul, you may be tempted to think that you are superior to other men, that you are wiser, that you are better. This is a great mistake. It is a great danger. For pride destroys the soul. Pride blinds the mind. Pride ruins the character. Therefore, beware of pride. The second danger is the danger of impatience. When you have begun to live more fully, you may be tempted to demand too much of yourself, to expect too much, to be dissatisfied with small results, to be discouraged by slow progress. This is a great mistake. It is a great danger. For impatience destroys perseverance. Impatience weakens the will. Impatience ruins the effort. Therefore, beware of impatience. The third danger is the danger of discouragement. When you have failed, when you have relapsed, when you have been idle, when you have wasted time, you may be tempted to give up, to despair, to abandon the effort. This is a great mistake. It is a great danger. For discouragement destroys hope. Discouragement paralyses the will. Discouragement ruins the life. Therefore, beware of discouragement. The fourth danger is the danger of excess. When you have begun to live more fully, you may be tempted to do too much, to demand too much of your mind, of your body, of your soul. This is a great mistake. It is a great danger. For excess destroys health. Excess weakens the mind. Excess ruins the soul. Therefore, beware of excess. The fifth danger is the danger of neglect. When you have begun to live more fully, you may be tempted to neglect the simple duties of life, to neglect your business, to neglect your family, to neglect your health. This is a great mistake. It is a great danger. For neglect destroys order. Neglect weakens character. Neglect ruins life. Therefore, beware of neglect. Therefore, I say, beware of pride, beware of impatience, beware of discouragement, beware of excess, beware of neglect. Live fully, but live wisely. Live richly, but live prudently. Live completely, but live humbly. Live within the narrow limits of 24 hours a day, but live with caution, with patience, with perseverance, with moderation, with duty. Then you will live indeed.